All right. So let me check something. Yeah, that sounds good. Um, okay. Um, I guess if you're squeamish, you shouldn't watch this video because I'm going to show you my Hickman line when I can, when the time is right for that. So the last time was Sunday, and I had started injecting myself with the stimulant for my bone marrow to increase the number of stem cells in my blood. Monday was a holiday, so there was nothing happening here. Probably people in dire situations in the hospital were still getting service, but there was nothing for me. On Tuesday, I went to the hospital to get the COVID test. Um, my COVID test was negative, by the way, which didn't surprise me. But it was the nicest test that I got because every time before this time when I had a COVID test, um, they were inserting in my nose something very long in one nostril. It was probably like 3 inches long. I don't remember. It was painful, but I would, just bear it for a while, and then they had to turn it for maybe 5 seconds. I don't remember, but it was painful. The one I had at the UMMC was painless. It was both nostrils, but just maybe a half an inch or maybe an inch inside the nostril. They didn't go that deep, and they found nothing. While we were at the hospital, I decided that I should be checked for symptoms because the injections I had been giving myself caused uh, bone pain, which I experienced bone pain in my back primarily, but I also experienced bone pain in my chest. And because of my history, um my cardiac history, I was concerned that maybe something was happening. And the reason I was concerned maybe something was happening is that I had a heart attack at 24. And, it's no laughing matter. Now I don't have a problem with it. But at the time when I had it, I was depressed after the attack. And also the hospital kind of missed it. Um, so I was concerned that maybe that chest pain that I was experiencing was not just bone pain, that it was something was happening to my heart. And one of the specific things I was worried about is that I was starting to get aortitis. That's not a term that I was ever familiar with. But the aortitis is when the aorta that goes to the earth gets infected. And apparently, the injections I was giving myself could possibly cause that. So while I was at the hospital and I got my COVID test, I decided right after I got the test to go see the nurses at the stem cell transplant unit. And the nurse there told me to go to the ER because they don't know how to evaluate that kind of problem. So I went to the ER, and there they did blood tests to check for enzymes in my blood to make sure that there were no enzymes showing damage to the heart. And they also gave me a chest X-ray, which was looking for damage to the heart, and I think probably more respiratory problems, like if I have had a pulmonary infection or something like that. And so they did all those tests and they found nothing. So we think that the chest pain I was experiencing was just bone pain. And I think they told me when they were checking me out, they told me that maybe 15% of people experience bone pain in the chest when they take the drug. I don't know how many of them are patients with a cardiac history, but I was one of those, and I wanted reassurance that I was not missing anything. I don't want my last words to be, "Oops, I should have gone to the hospital." um, so that was Tuesday. On Wednesday, we went back to the hospital very early. I had to get up at 4:30 a.m. because I had to be fasting and not drinking any water for 8 hours before the surgery that day. So I got up very early and I gorged on foods so that I wouldn't be hungry at 10 o'clock. I was hungry at 11 o'clock instead of 10 o'clock, but it helped a little bit. Um, then in the morning, I had a lab. They accessed the port, got some more blood work out of me. Um, then it was while we arrived at the nuclear. I don't remember how they call it. Nuclear radiology. I don't remember how they call it. But we arrived where I was supposed to go for the Hickman port installation. It was well, I was supposed to be there at 12. I arrived there maybe at 11, and I think at 11:30 they took me in uh, to be prepped for the operation. But the operation didn't start until 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was just there early. So they admitted me earlier than they were planning into the preparation room, but I didn't have the surgery earlier than planned. Um, and they installed I don't remember what the name they use, but it's a Hickman catheter, a Hickman line. Sometimes you just say a central line. There are many names for it. And what I'm going to do now, if you're squeamish, turn away. I'm going to show you my port because I am wearing currently a chemo shirt, which you can open from the top, and it's very useful when you have chemo and you don't want to take the whole damn shirt off. You can just unzip it on both sides, and it reveals. Um, yeah, there it is. My port. My port is actually over here, and you can see it because it's under the skin. I think I've shown it to you before. Um, so it's there, and this is the Hickman line, and I can take. Whoops, wrong direction. I can take there you go. So that's the Hickman line, and with both lines, a line that comes in and another one that comes out, and it goes into a vein, and they use this for apheresis, which is the blood filtering, and they can also give drugs through the Hickman line. And they have given me drugs yesterday through the Hickman line, but they principally use it to get the stem cells out of my blood, and they're going to use it again when they put the stem cells back into my body. Um, and I'm going to keep it from yesterday until the time they give me back my stem cells, and after they give me back my stem cells, they're going to take the port out, the Hickman line out, not the port. The port I'm going to keep for a while. They're going to take the Hickman line out after they give me my stem cells. And after the installation, which went very well, I thought I would sleep during the installation because I slept during the port installation partially. I didn't sleep through it because the surgeon kept asking me questions, and I had to answer him, so I didn't get the chance to sleep. But yeah, it went very well. They gave me local anesthesia, and I didn't feel anything, and I don't remember having to ask for an adjustment of the anesthesia. Just gave me anesthesia, local anesthesia. My head was turned away from the Hickman line where they would install it, and yeah, it went very well. And I came back out, and I was fine. I was able to eat and drink right away. And it took just a little time before they decided to discharge me. Uh, when I was there, it was bizarre because there was another guy, a black man, who kept going into bradycardia, and bradycardia is when your heart beats too slow. And the doctors don't like that, and I know they don't like that for multiple reasons. One of the reasons is that I used to have bradycardia because of the medicine they were giving me. The metoprolol was slowing my heart too much when I was at the hospital, and eventually there's a cardiologist that said, well, you don't really need it. I had been reduced in dose in the past, and then the cardiologist said you don't need it, and if we find that you do need it, we're going to give you something else than metoprolol because it slows your heart down too much. So yeah, there was a guy that was he kept going into bradycardia, and I could see it because he was across from me, and the drapes were open, and I could see the monitor, and it went into the number was low and it was yellow. So he went into bradycardia, and the nurses were talking with the doctors and with the guy, and at some point the guy just decided that he would leave the place, and that was it. That was enough for him. It had been there long enough. I had been out of bradycardia for about 15 minutes, I think the nurses were saying. And the doctor was saying, well, you should be, out of it for an hour before we let you go. And the guy said, no, I'm going. Uh, that's not the choice I would have made, but I don't know what the situation was. Um, so it was a bit weird. And after that, so I was released from surgery, and my wife and I then went to get to the infusion center because I needed a Mozobel injection. And we arrived there very early. I had to have it at 4:30 p.m. And the timing is important because there's a window of time that it acts. It acts during a window of time, and if you switch it too far out from one side or the other, you're going to have problems the next day when you go to get your blood filtered. So I was there at 4:30, and we arrived early, and the nurse there allowed us to go. And at first, we were in the waiting room, but she allowed us to go into the one of the back rooms early on, just to wait and not be in traffic. There were not many people there anyway at that time, but it was more peaceful in the back where there was nobody basically except us. Um, so we went there, and I had been warned by the coordinating nurse that if you take Mozobel, you can have diarrhea, and you can have even explosive diarrhea. Um, and I decided that to prevent problems, I should come with a diaper. And I had a diaper in my bag, an adult diaper. And I decided to put on the diaper. Um, so, yeah, I put on the diaper just before they gave me the shot, and then they gave me the shot. And it turns out I didn't need the diaper because I don't know why. I mean, they told me, it happens, and I decided to not take chances and not risk make a mess. So I took the diaper, but I didn't need it at the end when they released me after apheresis. There was no problem with my gut. So I don't know. Uh, and I see there's somebody in the chat. So I'm going to say hi. Oh, there's another there's a bunch of folks that are joining. Uh, so hi again. Um, yeah. Uh, by the way, if you have any questions, you can ask them. Uh, and I will try to and get them into the flow of my talking. And my wife gets on YouTube and says, "No, it's not Andy. It's that." Poor Debbie. I love her. I love her so much. Uh, she was a little confused there because the problem is that with the app I'm using, I can see both chats at the same time, but it's a little bit complicated when I reply back because I can reply to both channels at the same time, or I can reply to one channel or the other. And I made a mistake earlier. I replied to both channels, and my wife, decided to answer on YouTube that uh, she wasn't Andy. So yeah, the Mozambique could have given me diarrhea. So on Thursday, I went again to the hospital for the apheresis, which is the technical term for filtering the blood. So they were taking the stem cells out of my blood, and I arrived in the morning. We got up early again because we had to be there early. We got up at 4:30 a.m. Um, and then we got 4:30 a.m. We left here at 6 o'clock. We got there at 7, and they were situating me, and it was a very small space. So my wife, she was there from time to time, but she couldn't just like park herself there and be comfortable there. Even when she was there, there was very little space. So it was sometimes the nurse was going around, and my wife had to kind of juggle around the place and make sure that she was not in anybody's way. Uh, and So they were situating me, and there's a nurse who came by, and she said, "Oh, you're Mr. Dubois," and she said it's she didn't say it with a French Canadian accent, but she said it so well that I thought she must be speaking French, and I asked her in French if she spoke French, and she said yes, and we chatted in French for a little bit, and that's the. I don't remember how many people I've encountered in the healthcare system who speak French. I remember somebody from way before, and Frederick, who spoke French, who was one of my nurses. Um, and but right now, while at the Apheresis lab, they have a nurse who speaks French, and my doctor, my stem cell transplant doctor, does speak French, and I spoke with him in French a little bit when I first met him. Um, so so yeah, they hooked me up to the machine, and then I realized after they hooked me up and everything was fine and I was stable, and they had stopped poking me here and there. I thought, well, I can start streaming, and then I started doing tests, and I realized that the noise at first was a problem. I was able to overcome it by just switching mics. But then I realized there was somebody next to me, and there were drapes. Um, and the sound was just traveling through, and I thought, well, if I'm going to stream this, I'm going to stream whatever they are saying, which I guess doesn't. I don't know how HIPAA works, but the hospitals don't care much about whether your neighbor hears you, but they do care, I think, if you start broadcasting what people are saying in a healthcare setting. So I decided uh, not to do that. uh, yeah, so I did stream, but I was streaming without sound, which you know You could see me eat a granola bar or something. Uh, Not terribly exciting. Um, okay, yeah, and this morning, that was the first time I was taking a shower after they installed the Hickman line. Um, and I had been instructed on how to take care of the line and how to shower. Um, oh yeah, and I should say that between the time I did install the line on Wednesday, and on Thursday I went to Apheresis, so I would have had an opportunity to get the shower between Wednesday and Thursday, but I didn't because when I came back after they installed the line and I had the Mozobil injection that night, I just felt like crap. I just didn't feel like going up the stairs and taking a shower, and I felt I didn't feel good, so I just didn't do it. Um, so this morning was the first time I was taking a shower with it, and I decided to use these guys, which I've shown before, and that was pretty much a disaster. Well, not a disaster. It would have been a disaster if it had just fallen off and water would have gotten on the Hickman line, but it was not very useful. The problem with this is that the plastic that it's made of, I don't know if I can show it to you guys, but the plastic it's made of it's I find it's a little bit too rigid. So when you put it on and you start moving around, it wants to pull away from the corners of your body, and I was able to take a shower, but I had to watch myself very very carefully with this on. And I put the shower head lower than it usually is. We have a new shower head holder that I've put on the side of the bathtub. So I put the shower head lower, and I was controlling the jet also on and off to not have it on all the time. Because normally I just leave it on and it's hitting my head all the time. But with this thing, I don't want to do that. So I used that, and it didn't work very well. So I think tomorrow I'm going to use this, which was what I used for my Zeo heart monitor. I'm going to use this again, and I'm going to figure out a way to protect the port from this film because this film is very sticky. So I'm going to put masking tape. I don't know how I'm going to do masking tape or paper over the port, and then put the film on top of it. And it should be better than what I was dealing with this morning. Uh, yeah, so I showered, and the other thing I did for the Hickman line after I took my shower is that I had to flush the both lines. They instructed me on how to flush the lines, and I'm not going to do it now because it's pretty banal, but it's pretty easy. You just put the syringe at the end of the line and press on the syringe. They want you to do a pulse, and it was very easy because I don't remember if I mentioned that before, but in the fall last year, when I was released from Innova, they put me on an antibiotic, and the way they put me on an antibiotic, and I was released already, and it was not by mouth, it was IV. They inserted a line in my arm that was there for a week or so, and then there's a nurse that came here and showed me how to do it, and at that time I learned the basics of how to do it. So when they told me now that I would have to flush my lines again, yeah, I know how to. She showed me and she wanted me to demonstrate, but uh, I was able to tell them that I pretty much knew how it works. To not open the clamp before there's a syringe at the end, for instance, because if you do that, you're going to, depending on what you have implanted, you may have a mess, uh, or you may have a big mess, or you may have a small mess that you just need to clean up. In my case, it would be a small mess, but in some cases, I guess they can have a larger mess. Uh, so that's pretty much how the week went. I think at this point, what I like to do is remind you that with my streaming, I'm doing a fundraiser, and it's on from, I don't remember when I said it started. Probably I did say June 7th, but it doesn't matter. You can already give now. I've tried it, it works. It doesn't matter. I was told it doesn't matter where you are in the world. So if you're in Canada, you don't have to, well, you could uh, make a donation to Stand Up to Cancer Canada, but you don't have to. You can just send it to my page, and then it's going to be accounted in the fundraising, and it's going to go where it needs to go. So I'm reminding you, whoops, wrong finger. I'm reminding you that right in here in the corner, you should have a QR code. If you don't see it or if there's any problem, let me know. That takes you directly to the donation page. Otherwise, I have it on my Twitch page. There's a big big orange button that says donate. And it takes you to the donation page. I have it also on my YouTube channel. Um, and Yeah, so it doesn't matter where you are in the world. I mean, I think they're gonna do the monetary conversion without any problem, and it's gonna go to Stand Up to Cancer, and I think it's a worthwhile enterprise that we should all support. Um, that's pretty much about it for me. So, are there questions? Well, I'm not seeing any questions, so uh, I can tackle the topic of cancer, and people get cancer, and I've been relatively uh, lucky that so far my case has been going very well. The tumor disappeared after 2 rounds of chemo. Um, After 5 rounds of chemo, I was declared in remission. I finished the 8 rounds because my doctor wanted to do the 8 rounds, and I didn't complain about that. And now I'm going into stem cell therapy and stem cell transplant. And by the way, thank you, Thomas, with the cheat engine. uh, um, yeah, so I'm going to go have the transplant, and everything is going, pretty well for me. And that's what I need to be well mentally, is to have a plan of attack. While I didn't have the plan of attack between June 5th and November 17th of last year, I was not doing very well. I was depressed. I had panic attacks basically. and the doctors were helpful with that. But what really made the difference for me was on November 17th when they diagnosed it. I was put into chemo, and then we had a plan of attack. We're going to have chemo, then we're going to have a stem cell transplant, and we can tackle this thing. Uh, and that's what really made a difference for me. And sometimes when I am active in on the internet and support groups, I'm on the Stand Up to Cancer Discord. I have my own Discord, which is for people with lymphomas or their family or anybody who's interested in a lymphoma. It could be medical reasons, or your friend has a lymphoma. I don't care. Um, and I hear stories, a lot of stories, and some of the stories are much more dire than my story, where they've tried treatment after treatment after treatment, and the people don't seem to be improving, or I don't know what's going on, because I have stories, but I don't have, I think, always the full story. So I don't know how long they've been in the system and how long the doctors have been working on them necessarily, but I know that it's not working, and it's really difficult. And to anybody who has cancer, who is younger than I am, and they're teenagers, sometimes they're in their 20s, and they have to deal with the chemo and the treatments and this and that. I admire them, because if I look at my own life, I don't think at that age I would have had the patience. I don't know. I guess I wouldn't have had any choice, but I think I would have pitched tantrums from time to time. Uh, so I admire those folks, and also in the way they sometimes the questions they ask, or the way they explain the situation. Um, there sometimes I unfortunately I have to wonder about the quality of care, because I know for a fact from my own experience, when I had my first symptoms, I went to the local hospital here, and they misdiagnosed me with MS. I don't know what those doctors were reading or eating or drinking, but they were not on the ball at all. It's when Innova started looking at my case that they started saying, "Oh, you probably have a lymphoma," but they weren't sure until the brain biopsy. You have to always do a brain biopsy to diagnose well, not a brain biopsy necessarily. You always have to do a biopsy to diagnose a lymphoma, because a lot of people have the lymphoma in other parts of the body, but you have to do a biopsy to diagnose it. And it's not until Innova, said you probably have a lymphoma and you should get a biopsy either at Innova or Johns Hopkins, that things started getting into focus for me. Uh, so yeah, sometimes I read stories, or I see stories, and I talk to people, and I wonder about the quality of care. I try to be diplomatic and not just say, well, you should get a second opinion. But there have been times where I've done it because, in my case, I think it really saved my life. The local hospital here was going to just treat me for MS forever, and I would have gone back and back and back and died at some point, because the MS treatment doesn't help. Um, yeah, it's a little bit sad sometimes, the questions I see, and what side effects should I expect? And as far as I know, like the side effects you should expect from chemo or any treatment for cancer, it's very variable. I had nausea, some diarrhea, um, tiredness, and that's about it. But then I talk to people who have had hair loss. I know I'm losing a little hair here, but I don't think it's the chemo that did that. I was already, before I had the lymphoma, I was already losing a little bit of hair here, and the lymphoma may have like cranked my biological clock a little bit further faster. But this is not chemo. I didn't lose any hair through chemo, and I know people. And just this morning, I was talking to somebody on a lymphoma forum, and he was talking about his case. When he took the showers and how he was protecting his Hickman line, and he told me that at that time the chemo had removed most of his hair, which made it a different ball game for him because he was from what I was getting, he was pretty much toweling himself on the head. So he was wet a towel and then just towel himself. But I can't do that because this is too much hair, and also I have sensitive skin and I can get uh, dandruff very easily. So if I just take a towel and rub it there, it's not going to be good enough. I need to use shampoo and lather very seriously my head if I don't want to have dandruff. Uh, Now I don't remember where I was going with that. Um, but yeah, the symptoms are very different for different people. And so you have people who come on the internet and say, I'm going to go into this chemo. What symptoms can I expect? And my answer is almost always ask your team, ask your oncologist, ask your oncology team. And sometimes it's not necessarily the oncologist who's going to come and be right there right at this moment, but the nurse, you can ask the nurse, and the nurse will, if she's a good nurse, she's going to transfer it to somebody who can answer the question. Sometimes the nurse don't know, but she will talk to somebody who can answer, excuse me, your question. Um, and how long am I going to be in the hospital after for how long am I going to be in the hospital for chemo or for this thing or for that thing? My chemo was four I was there about 4 days, and then I had 2 weeks off, and then I was there 4 days again and 2 weeks off and 4 days. For somebody who has a different chemo, it can be completely different. I cannot tell them how it's going to be. Stem cell transplant is it's pretty much the same thing. You can recover very quickly from it. I think 2 weeks is the lowest time that I've been quoted, but it can take 3 weeks. And if you have serious complications, it can take even longer to recover before they discharge you to go back home. And and when my oncology team informs me of how long it's going to take, how long this and that and then it's going to take, or the symptoms or anything. They just give me. I have lists. I have lists of symptoms that can happen. I could have lost my hair. I could have lost my hair when I was doing the stimulation uh, with the Mozobil. Mozobil can have a side effect that you have hair loss. I didn't experience it, but some people do. Um, then how long is it's going to be? Again, they give me a range. They say, well, 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and it can really go even longer than that. They're not able right now to tell me, yeah, it's going to be 2 weeks. We know for sure. I'm going to ask my oncologist actually when I go back on Monday. I have another appointment with the oncologist, and I will keep everyone updated at that time through Twitter or I'll broadcast. I don't know what I'm going to do. Uh, but yeah, on Monday I'm going to ask because one thing that I forgot to mention is when they did the apheresis and we were getting the number, we were waiting for tests to come back, the numbers, and we were waiting for the numbers. The nurses told me that I had excellent numbers. It was not just like you're borderline okay. It was, oh, you have excellent numbers. I'm wondering, can they tell from that whether I'm gonna have a fast recovery when I do the transplant, or maybe they can't. I mean, maybe the story is going to be like it was before, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We don't know. uh, yeah. So yeah, the next steps for me, yes, on Monday I'm going to see the doctor for a follow up. I guess it will have seen my apheresis results, and we'll figure out when I'm going to have the actual transplant. Because up to now, what we've been doing is just a pre-transplant. So we're getting the cells out and we're storing them somewhere. I saw the bag. It was a very small bag, by the way. You think it would be huge, 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 huge. No, it was very small. Um, I don't know how I can represent it, but it was small. Um, and so we've been doing the pre transplant procedure, and now I'm gonna have to go to the transplant. So I'm gonna go see my doctor on Monday. I hope we're gonna have some dates established for the transplant. And he's gonna tell me what they are, and then when I have the transplant, the first thing they're gonna do is give me enough chemo to kill all my lymphocytes. I don't know how they calculate how many lymphocytes are remaining. It seems to me a little bit bizarre, but they're supposed to kill them all. Um, and then they're gonna give me back my stem cells, and then it's gonna be waiting. After I think there's 1 week of chemo, and then after the chemo is done, they give me back my stem cells, and then I have to wait another week for the stem cells to what they call engraft. That's a scientific term, to engraft into my bone marrow, because the stem cells apparently they're intelligent in some fashion. They're not able to do your taxes, but they're able to find their way back into the bone marrow. So they're going to find their way back into the bone marrow, and they're going to start producing new lymphocytes. And when they think I'm strong enough, they're going to say, "Well, you can go home." And I'm going to go home, and then the recovery after the transplant, the recovery can be what I've been quoted, 6 months to a year. Is it going to be more in the 6 months range for me, or the year range? I don't know. I'm pretty positive, because so far I haven't had a lot of terrible side effects, and the numbers are good. They did the apheresis in 1 day. I remember. There's one other thing that I forgot to tell, is that the nurse, when they were doing early on, it was not this week. It was the previous week. Um, she 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 talked to me and my wife, and she was talking about this, the apheresis, and she was saying that for lymphoma patients, it usually takes 2 days to get enough stem cells for a transplant, and for me, it just took 1 day. So, you know, right now, I mean, it's not a great situation. I don't wish cancer on anyone, but I think I'm in a pretty good shape to get out of the hospital on the early side, and to recover fairly quickly. And I already have projects lined up for after I come back. I'm the kind of guy who likes to work around the house, and I like to work, but I also like to work around the house. And after the transplant, I won't be able. They don't expect me to do work, so I'm not going to look for a job or anything immediately. But I do have plans for around the house, and maybe even before the transplant, I might be able to squeeze in. This morning, I bought 6 um, Nest smoke detectors, because last night I decided to sleep in the guest room, which is behind me. The way our house is arranged is that the master bedroom is on the first floor. It's like a farmhouse, basically. If you know how farmhouses are built, like an ancient time farmhouse, but it's been built in the 80s, so it's not that old. But it reminds me of my grandparents' house, which was built in the 40s, and that was a real farmhouse. So this is a little bit bigger than a farmhouse, but the master bedroom is on the first floor. And last night I decided to sleep in the guest room, because I'm having sleeping troubles, and I don't know what causes it exactly. I've been having a very good sleep hygiene, but yeah, I'm trying to isolate possible problems. And in the room here, we have a fan. So I turned the fan on, and it blows on me. And I was sleeping pretty well until damn smoke detector at 1:30 a.m. decided to start bleeping. And I was in bed, and I was bleep, bleep. beep. And then I had to get up. I knew what it was. I mean, at first I didn't know, but then oh, it's the fucking smoke detector. Yeah, I said fucking. Um, it's the smoke detector. So I got up. I went downstairs, got a ladder, came back up, got on the ladder, opened the thing, removed the batteries, or disconnected the batteries. I didn't remove them. I just disconnected them. And then this morning I thought somebody must have come up with something better than this nonsense. Uh, and they did. And I don't, I mean, I didn't search for, I know I didn't spend the whole morning searching for all kinds of things. I just went, I saw what Home Depot was selling, which is mostly crap that asks you to get on a ladder every time there's a problem. And then I looked at Google, and I knew a little bit about the Nest, but I think the last time I looked at it, it was first generation. I don't remember what the limitations were then. I'm not sure if it had to be wired. I don't. I have no idea. But the second generation is battery operated, which is good for us because all our system is battery operated. And this thing is just going to, you know, it warns you if you have smoke in the house. It is going to warn you before it starts the alarm. It's going to say, "Hey, there's smoke. Do something." And you can shut it up at that point. So, my wife was saying, well, when I cook, sometimes there's smoke in the kitchen. You sure you want to put one in the kitchen? I said, you can shut it up before it starts yakking. I mean, it's going to start yakking and then you shut it up and then it's not going to raise an alarm. And if the battery goes low, it's going to tell you ahead of time the battery has gone low. If there's a fire, it's going to tell you on your phone and everyone in the house where there's a smoke alarm which room there's a problem in. Uh, so if it's in the kitchen and I know my wife is cooking and I'm somewhere else in the house and I hear I'm probably going to go check anyway, but I know where the problem is. I don't right now. It beeps upstairs. We're not too bad. If it beeps in the middle of the house, then there's been times where I was wondering, is it upstairs? Is it downstairs? Where is it? Where is it beeping? And this one is going to tell us exactly where the problem is. It's on our phone. We're away from the house. There's a fire in the house. Hopefully there won't be a fire, but if, we're going to be alerted. Whereas our current system is, there's a fire in the house. It beeps in the house, and everything burns down. If you're not there, you don't know it. And I could have gotten something with my alarm system. But another thing these days I'm pondering a lot is establishing systems that my wife can operate, that she can easily operate, that I can operate, and I'm happy to operate because I've set up a lot of systems around the house, and some of them, like the alarm system, if I were to die, my wife wouldn't know what to do with it. I mean, she could still, start it, stop it, probably bypass a zone because we've done it before. But she would, if there's any problem with it, she wouldn't know how to solve it. And I'm trying to be less. I'm trying to be less self-sufficient. I was very self-sufficient before, and now the things are turning a little bit towards less self-sufficiency. Where this was last week. I bought a Nest Hello doorbell, and this thing has been amazing because it has enough intelligence in it to know when there's a person coming in the door. When you're coming in the door, it recognizes my face. It recognizes my wife's face. It could recognize the kids when they're coming to our house. They're grown. They live somewhere else. So when they come to our house, they could recognize the kids. Which I have cameras elsewhere, not at the doorbell, but I have cameras elsewhere, and they don't do that. And possibly I could do something with this library and that library, and this the amount of work you have to do to get those cameras to understand what is a person is just it's crazy. And also, there, I'm sorry, but I think I haven't seen in the open source world something which is the quality that the Nest Hello doorbell is, because we can have notifications on our phone. We know when a package is delivered. That's another thing. We know when a package is delivered. Down the other cameras, I can it doesn't know if there's a package or anything. It's like I have one in front of the house that looks at it looks at the same area that the Nest doorbell does, and if there's a package coming, it doesn't know. It's completely stupid. Um, and unfortunately, the cameras I already have, they cannot be switched to Nest. So I saw the Nest Hello, and I installed it, and it works well. And I saw my wife use the interface, and it's intuitive, and she's able to use it. And I don't think that if I put her on, I mean, I've been using my system by myself, but if I put her on my system, I don't think yeah, she would throw rocks at it. It's she wouldn't she wouldn't take to it at all. I mean, I use it and I find it complicated for nothing, and the interface is really not intuitive. I'm able to go from event to event and look at stuff, and but it's really not intuitive. On with the Hello Nest, is just scrolling. You scroll. That's it. You want to see the next event, you scroll to the next event. With my stuff, you have to click here and click there, and it's a nightmare. So, one of the things I've been thinking about, because now I'm doing good, but at some point I was doing pretty bad before the biopsy. I was, I didn't see right. I couldn't. I was cross-eyed and blurriness also, and I was walking with the walker, and at that time I was more worried than I am now. But I was thinking, you know, if I kick the bucket, or if I'm indisposed enough that I cannot be around and there's a problem, how is my wife going to be able to handle it? Eventually she can. I'm sure she could handle anything. At worst, she could have. Well, now we had the pandemic, so I also didn't want workers coming into the house because we had the pandemic. But uh, eventually she could have had somebody come in and look at my alarm system is a commercial system. People know how to operate it. Um, and I've left enough information for my wife to operate some of the things around the house, or have somebody operate it for her. But I've been thinking about making things easier for her and also easier for me, um, so that I don't spend so much time babysitting internal servers in the house uh, as I used to. I like to, any work I do here, I like to spend my time doing work that I think is going to last longer than just me. Uh, because, you never know. Now I have cancer, but, the next day I could be hit by a bus or something. And I don't want to leave my wife uh, in trouble. So I think the alarm system, it's pretty much my baby, but somebody could come in and jump in and do it. But my camera system, I just did stuff by myself, and I plugged stuff here, and then you have a camera from one brand, a camera from another brand, and I was able to put everything together. But somebody would come in and try to jump into that, and it would, meh. I'm, it's a sad state of affair, but I'm pretty sure some worker would come here and just say, "Oh, we need to replace everything with new cameras," or some nonsense like that, which is not true. But on the other hand, I can understand that they don't want to get into my mess, because it's not cost effective for them to do that. So, yeah, some thoughts about about leaving behind things that other people can use and not be too confused about. So, are there any questions? When I have a pocket porky pig, I think it's porky pig. Oh yes, it says right there, glass. Maybe I'm gonna be sued now because people are crazy about copyrights. Well, I'm not seeing any questions coming, so I think I'm gonna end it now. It's about 1 hour since I've started. Um, so I thank you for your participation, and well, I'm gonna talk to you. Well, it's gonna happen on Monday, one way or another. It might be on Twitter, or I might stream again. I'm not sure. Probably it's gonna be on Twitter. It depends. We're gonna see. The schedule. My schedule is determined by the hospital, and they pretty much do whatever they want. So I'll say goodbye and end it here. See you Monday.